Cities Committee that wrote laws for New York City, which did not then enjoy home rule. He ran unsuccessfully for mayor of New York in 1886. Later, his first act as U.S. Civil Service Commissioner was to return to the city of his birth and attack corruption in the New York Custom House. He served as New York City Police Commissioner for 2 years. Then, as governor, he constantly dealt with the affairs of New York City and the Republican boss Thomas Collier Platt, who held court at Manhattan's Fifth Avenue Hotel. As president, Roosevelt continued to concern himself with the minutiae of New York politics and government, from mayoral elections to police promotions, and from Republican politics to the war on vice. Even while occupying the White House, Theodore Roosevelt was still a New Yorker, and his politics reflected this. Roosevelt was no agrarian populist from west of the Mississippi. He was an urban progressive, concerned with such issues as civil service, municipal reform, and political machines. In addition to writing about the West, Roosevelt also wrote about urban affairs. In 1891, he published a History of New York, from the time of its discovery by Henry Hudson in 1609. Years before he wrote his famous 1894 essay, True Americanism in the Forum, Roosevelt wrote in New York that the most important lesson taught by the history of New York City is the lesson of Americanism, the lesson that he among us who wishes to win honor in our life and to play his part honestly and manfully must be indeed an American in spirit and purpose, in heart and thought and deed. In 1895, while he was police commissioner, Roosevelt penned the essay, The City in Modern Life, as well as another essay entitled The Higher Life of American Cities. Throughout his career, he wrote essays on machine politics in New York, the New York police, and efforts at reform. In writing about the West, Roosevelt adroitly tapped into Americans' romantic obsession in order to sell books and promote an image of himself, whereas in writing about New York, he arguably wrote about the experiences and ideas closest to his heart. Roosevelt's political career grew and developed in concert with the city. During his lifetime, the population of New York City grew from 800,000 to an astonishing 5.5 million, which made it the second largest city in the world. The expanding population strained basic city services, such as water and sanitation. Limited housing forced the working class into ever more densely packed tenements, which became visible and decrepit symbols of poverty, crime, and disease. Such areas became fertile ground for social reformers, and political reformers, such as Roosevelt, took aim at the city government. A growing city and its infrastructure meant that New York politicians oversaw increasingly large budgets. Inevitably, much of this money found its way into the pockets of unscrupulous city officials and their allies. There was never enough revenue to finance the building of roads, bridges, parks, and courthouses, and so the city depended increasingly on raising money by issuing bonds. Such bloated debt caused one New York mayor to note in 1882 that the city owed to creditors the equivalent of about 10% of the total value of all Manhattan real estate. At the same time, it became harder to understand who was actually in charge in the city. A shadowy, unelected board of aldermen checked the policies and appointments of the mayor, who was elected to only a 2-year term. In turn, the party bosses, especially from the city Democratic organization known as Tammany Hall, manipulated mayors, aldermen, and city officials. Throughout his career in the city and Albany, Roosevelt championed measures that increased the executive power of the mayor while seeking to undermine the influence of party bosses and their puppets on the board of aldermen. Roosevelt entered city politics at a time when New York was renowned as the most corrupt of American cities. The city lived under the shadow of William Tweed, Tammany Hall's most notorious boss. Tweed had initially bought controlling interest in the companies that sold printing services and office supplies to the city at inflated prices. He soon had interest in or sat on the boards of half a dozen companies that did business with the city.